moist but not wet. So you see this? Watch. When I squeeze it, you get a couple things. That's it. That's the way it should be. Just like that. And you put that in there. And you do that until you have about 2 inches on the bottom. Only 2 inches. You don't want any more than that, because I'm going to tell you why. You want to add bedding and food to this as time goes on. You don't want this filled right away. The worms will not go down there and eat that. The worms are only going to eat what's ever at the surface. So if you keep the surface near the bottom and you watch it, you're going to have very happy worms that are going to compost everything for you. Okay? So let me just move along here so I could just show you how this works. All right. All right. So we have about 2 inches on the bottom now. Now we take newspaper, regular newspaper. This stuff, not this. This is the shiny stuff. You don't compost this. This you could throw in the garbage, burn, recycle it, do whatever you're going to do with it. You don't want that in your worm bed. There are many different reasons, but the worms won't eat it, and it'll just poison everything. So this regular newsprint, this is what you want. If you don't have a shredder works great. Also, if you have a leaf shredder or a wood chipper, you could take the newspaper and roll it up like the size of a stick and put it through. That'll make a nice puffy mixture that you could use. So, or you could just rip it up with your hands, and that's what we're going to do here, because I want to just stick with things that everybody who is reviewing this video can do. So basically, you can just rip it all up, rip it up in strips. Doesn't have to be pretty. Put it into your bucket. Now I already ripped up some. Now, like I said before, if you do not want to use peat moss, you can do a 50-50 mixture of cardboard. This is regular cardboard. Came out of Christmas boxes that we just opened up for Christmas. And newspaper. So you do 50% cardboard, 50% newspaper. That's if you don't want to use peat moss. You could also just do this if you do want to use peat moss. But if you don't have peat moss, or you can't get peat moss, or you just don't feel like spending the money and you want to compost, cardboard works great. I already cut these up. Newspaper works great. And you want to use some warm water again, and you want to wet that. You don't want to wet it in the bin, because you don't want that bin becoming too wet. You want that to soak in. Let that really just soak up, and let that just take that water in, because that's going to be important. We're going to do the same thing we just did with the peat moss. We're going to wring it out. And I'm going to show you. Sorry for my mess. But this is a worm farm, and worm farms are not pretty. Be neater, but they're not pretty. And I'm not pretty. But I am wearing gloves, because I don't like having worm poop under my nails. Anyway, all right, so let me just show you this. So I take this, and I'm only wearing one glove, so I'm going to use one hand, wring it out, and put it in, all right? Put it into a, I'm making believe I'm putting it into this bed here. You can see it's smoking. That's from the steam from the hot water. Boom, see? Now, if it was in this bed, say I take this peat moss and put it in. So it's 50-50. If you don't want to use peat, you can use newspaper and you can use cardboard. If you don't want to use manure, because some people don't have manure, right? Then you use 50% peat, 50% newspaper, or 50% cardboard mixed in like that. This is food. They'll eat this. The worms will eat this. So you have a way to get rid of your cardboard, all that Christmas cardboard you have, all the newspaper piling up. You just put that in here. So I'm going to come around so I can show you this. But this is it. This is it. So if I really squeeze it, the cardboard and the newspaper, I'm going to get a couple drops. See that? That's as wet as your worm bed should ever be. A couple drops. That's it. If it's any wetter than that, you're going to have a mess on your hands. This is, the worms love it just like this. Okay. So, now, you have your worm bed, you have your bedding. This is it. A shoebox full, almost to the top. That's going to fill this bottom of this about 2 to 3 inches up. That's all you want. That is all you want. I'm going to show you this. That's it. See that? Beautiful. Now, like I feel like Julia Childs or one of these cooks, Rachel Ray, except I'm prettier than Rachel Ray. All right, now we need worms. This glossy stuff, remember this? Like I said, you don't use this. Throw it away. I have this out just to show you. There's a box from Amazon. This is great. This is what you use. You want to use this for bedding, you rip it up, soak it, use it. This stuff right here, these are the worms. All right, so let me get this for you. These are worms that I just harvested. Right here is about 1,000 worms. We want about 1,000 worms in a bin this size. And the reason for that is that 1,000 worms in here will work to break down your food. You're going to be able to, like I said earlier, you're going to be able to break down and have them consume about 3 to 4 pounds of food or food scraps every week. And you're going to be able to do that in a bin this size. I know that might seem crazy, but once they're established, it will do that. Now, what I want you to see here is this. And the sun's coming through, so I don't know if that's creating any glare or not, but this is worm bedding that they were already in. Now, you can see this is a mixture of manure and peat, so that's why I'm wearing gloves. I want to leave about a handful of this, which is why I left this in with the worms, because I want this in the new bed. And the reason for that is I want to be able to inoculate this new bed. The only way that worms can eat food scraps, newspaper, peat moss, or anything that you put in there is because they eat the microbes. It's through microbial breakdown. So if you put a handful of this old waste, so once your bed is going and you're rolling along and you take that and you make a new bed, you want to take some of the old bedding, a handful of the old bedding, the fresh stuff at the top, and you want to transfer that to the new bed. And the reason for that is because it's filled with microbes, and those microbes will get to work right away. They'll start to break down the stuff in your worm bed, and that'll enable the worms to eat it. The worms cannot eat it if it doesn't start to break down. And that's really what you want. Now, that'll happen naturally anyway, so don't worry if you don't have, I don't have a handful of microbes or manure or old bedding. That'll happen naturally if you get your worms from us. Obviously, we're gonna pack that with fresh bedding so that you have those microbes and so that you could go and just put it in. Now, these are breeders. You could use bed run, but you have to remember one thing: if you're breeding worms, the bed run worms, bed run means a mixture of worms, big, breeder size, juvenile, and babies. Breeders mean they're ready to breed. So that means as soon as you put them in there, about a week later, they're going to start laying eggs. These worms will maybe give you an egg a week, an egg every 2 weeks. But if you have 1,000 worms and each worm gives you an egg every 2 weeks, you're going to, over time, you're going to have thousands and thousands of worms. You don't have to worry that they're going to explode in population and take over the world, or climb out of your worm bed because there's too many. Their population will be controlled by the space that you have and what you do. So that will never happen. But you want to start with a good amount of worms, 500 to 1,000 worms for a bed this size. These are breeders. And how do you know they're breeders? Because they have collars. They're already collared worms. They're pretty nice size. These are red wrigglers. So it's only about 65 degrees in here, so they're not wiggling around like crazy. But I'm going to come closer to the camera so you can see these. But if you take a look at these are breeder size worms. These are nice size worms. They all have collars. This is a collar. These are all collared worms. Worms are hermaphrodites. So that means that both male and female worm is the same worm. So they can breed with themselves. Might be some happy men out there if you can just breed with yourself, I guess. But fortunately or unfortunately, that's not the case with us. We need a wife in order to breed, and these worms don't get yelled at. See, you don't hear any arguing here. Take out the garbage. It's your turn to change the diapers, because they're all the